Hi, my name is Victor Gospodinoff, and I'm here to tell you about my wife Anna and her struggles with cancer. Not only her struggles, but our struggles as a family. Anna, when she was diagnosed with breast cancer, was 39, and she had absolutely no family history of cancer whatsoever. Incredibly healthy person, very Mediterranean type diet, a lot of olive oil and green vegetables and different colored vegetables, and very, very healthy person. This happened, we were hit by this totally out of the blue on Thanksgiving Friday 2008. It's November 29th to be exact. The previous night we had been at a Thanksgiving dinner with some friends. No real worries in the world other than what size of dessert we had to take to our friend's house as our contribution to the Thanksgiving dinner. And, well, Anna, the following morning, woke up with terrible, terrible headaches, throwing up time and time again. By around 2 o'clock in the afternoon, she had vomited about 7 or 8 times, which is totally out of character, so to say. She'd gone through three pregnancies and never even had morning sickness, and at that point it had been 18 years that we had known each other. So to see her sick was just not part of the picture. In all those years, maybe she had the flu twice, and so I was, she didn't want to go to. I wanted to take her to the hospital. She didn't want to go because she was saying it's Thanksgiving Friday and nobody's going to be there, and I'm going to have to wait for hours. And I said, by 2 or 3 in the afternoon, I said, this is enough. I mean, this is not working. The Tylenol isn't working. The Motrin isn't working. The Alka-Seltzer, anything we tried didn't work. So I tried to get her out of bed, and I thought she was going to just collapse on me right then and there. So I decided to call 911. Let the pros handle the situation, and we took her to the hospital. What initially seemed to be meningitis because of the clinical symptoms, which at the time obviously I thought was horrible. I thought it was really bad. I mean, meningitis, that's a very dangerous sickness or disease, and so we were placed in an isolation room because of the fear of the meningitis. About an hour later, the doctor comes back and says, "Sir, there is no inflammation of the meningi." And I'm like, "Oh, this is great. No meningitis. Good. Just tell us what color pill we have to take, and we're on our way home." But he said, "Regretfully, there's 2 masses in the brain." Obviously, time stood still, and so first thing I said, "You mean tumors?" And the doctor says, "Listen, I'm not a specialist, and we'd have to do further testing, but because of the size and consistency of these masses that we see, it doesn't look good. And there's one in the back part of her head that it's a very dangerous position, and I would like to call the hospital's chief neurosurgeon on an emergency call." This is Thanksgiving Friday, about 9:30 p.m. And coming from a family of doctors, I realized that this is not an ingrown toenail. To his credit, the neurosurgeon showed up about an hour and a half later. And the first thing he said when he saw the same CAT scan was, "I can't confirm that these are malicious tumors, but because of the shape, the consistency, the density of the images, I would pretty much bet my reputation on them that they are. Obviously, we have to do further testing, but on top of that, if she started with these tremendous headaches so suddenly, it's because the mass that's in the back part of the brain is growing very aggressively. And in my book, the only thing I know of that grows that aggressively in such a short period of time is a malicious tumor." So, we're standing there. I'm standing there. Anna is lying on a bed, and the doctor's on the other side. And I'm basically on the verge of fainting. My knees are buckling. And Anna just looks at the doctor with absolute calm and says, Doc, let me see if I have this straight. You don't know exactly what I have yet, correct? He says, yeah, that's correct, but regretfully, it looks pretty serious. Uh-huh. So that means you don't know exactly what I have to do to get better. Well, correct, says the doctor. Okay. Once you know, just tell me what I have to do, because I'm going to do it. Because I'm too good of a mother to stop being a mom. And it was one of those life-changing moments, actually. She said this in such a calm state that you just could see the calm resolve. You could tell that no matter what, she was going to pull through. There was no screaming, yelling, crying. It was just, almost as if it was an everyday event. If I would ask you if you were going to put salt on your chicken, I don't know, type thing. So that was absolutely incredible, and that's basically it straightened my knees out. And I said, okay, that's enough. No complaining. No, we're not going to sissy our way through this. We're just going to fight for it. And well, I was at this point it was like 1 o'clock in the morning. So I was basically told that Anna's going to ICU, you're going home, and that's it. So I got home. Our kids we have 3 children that at the time were 3, 7, and 9. They were at some friend's house, and all the behind-the-scenes logistics that go on with these things. But I got home at maybe 2 o'clock in the morning, totally alone. You have a normal 2,000-foot square house. That day seemed like a 2,000-acre house. It was one of the longest nights of my life. Over the next few days, they do a lot of testing, and we basically discovered that Anna had a primary tumor in her right breast that had metastasized to 2 brain tumors, one in the frontal area, the one in the back. She had cancer and her meningitis tissue. In other words, people get seriously sick with meningitis because of a bacteria or a virus. She had cancer instead of, cancerous meningitis instead of bacterial or viral meningitis. On top of that, she had cancerous spots in her left lung, left kidney, her liver, and the base of her spine. A few days after being admitted to the hospital initially, she had surgery to remove the tumor in the back of her head. The surgery went very well, but regretfully, about 4 or 5 days after the surgery, she had a stroke. So the whole situation was just an absolute mess. It was like every day you were just praying for a neutral day, a day that you wouldn't get more bad news. It was every single day there was something new, and regretfully, none of it was good. To the point that an internal medicine doctor, after the stroke, comes to me and says, Mr. Gospodinoff, I'm not an oncologist. Cancer is not my specialty. I'm internal medicine. I know basically how the body should function as a complete unit. And regretfully, I must say that your wife, what she has, is so aggressive and so widespread. You're not going to stop this with anything. You can do all the chemotherapies you want. You can do the radiation. You can do surgery. You can do non-conventional medicine, you can combine these things, but you're not going to stop this. And the only thing you're going to do is make her suffer in vain. So if I were you, I would simply give her painkillers, and regretfully, you must accept the fact that the disease must complete its course. So, I sort of look at the doctor and say, Doc, can I ask you a question? I'm a person I can be very hot-headed, and for some reason I kept, I'm still surprised at how calm I kept, myself at that time. I basically asked him, Doc, can I ask you a question? He said, yes, of course. Why did you waste so much good time and money going to medical school? I mean, you don't need an education to shoot yourself up with drugs. It happens on street corners with people who don't even know how to read and write. So he looked at me a bit startled. I sort of went on with my thing, and I said, as far as I'm concerned, if one person tells the other to fill themselves up with drugs so they don't feel anything and wait for death, that's basically a dealer talking to a junkie. So then he got offended and said, how dare you talk to me that way? And I said, well, how dare you tell me I throw my wife away like an empty can of Coke? So obviously I never spoke to him again. I pulled Anna out of that hospital. We went to Baptist Hospital. I asking for a doctor. She was on vacation. Her right-hand man, so to say, showed up, which obviously was a bit of destiny. Dr. Paul Kaywin. He said, I'm gonna run an initial evaluation. Your wife is in very serious condition. Literally a week before Christmas, he said she has, according to me, basically a 3% chance to make it alive through January. This is the optimist, okay? Not the doctor who said we shouldn't do anything. So his optimism was, maybe she has 45 days to live. Among other things, you have no idea how difficult it is to look at your kids in the eyes a week later and say Merry Christmas. I basically focused on the positive. I said, I'm not going to waste 1 calorie of my energy on the 97% that I don't have. But I did promise myself that I would, fight with all my energy for that 3%. And if I was going to lose that 3%, they were going to have to yank it out of my hands, taking my fingernails, the skin of my palms, everything. I started to get so many emails from all around the world. I mean, the most incredible messages. I'd get emails, we forward this email to a pastor in Texas, and now his congregation, it's 5,000 people every weekend will be praying for your wife. I have emails from India, from people I don't even know. Literally all basically with the same message. Our thoughts, our energy, our prayers are with you and your wife and your family. And so even if I felt like giving up, in a very positive way, I was almost blackmailed into not ever giving up, because it was so much, it was an outpour of support. And that was, the electronic, so to say. But what also happened at the hospital was that it ended up being a constant flow of people that would come in to say hello, to pray for Anna, in the most positive way. I didn't care, what religion or what point of view you carried with yourself. What I cared about was that you cared, and there was some kindness in your heart, or some, some positive energy in your soul, whatever your set of beliefs are. And so what happened was, at the hospital we had literally, Catholic priests come in, nuns. We're Catholic, but not very hardcore, so to say. But we had, evangelicals, Baptists, Buddhists. Even a rabbi came in one day. I have no idea really, and the amount of gifts, anything from a tray of cookies to sand from, Holy Land in Israel, to different types of holy water, blessed oils, you name it, candles. I always say jokingly that I basically drew the line at human sacrifices. That that was just the one I wasn't gonna do, and that I did actually have a voodoo doll and some pins, but I never actually used them. I am convinced today that if Anna is alive, it's because literally thousands of people in the world asked for this to happen. But if I had to boil everything down to maybe 2 points, to like bullet points, I would say, number one, all of us were a lot stronger than we initially believe. No matter who you are, where you are, we are all a lot stronger and a lot tougher than we think. Number one. And number two is that in this world there is so much more good that we normally allow ourselves to see on an everyday basis. And everything else that I learned from all this is in one shape, way, or form based on those two premises. I can tell so many different stories about different people that showed up, to support us, to help us. And a lot of people would tell me things like, I have a pastor who would like to go pray for your wife. Does this bother you? I'd say, bother me? I'm Catholic, so look for a priest, but somebody that I don't even know, who doesn't know my family, is willing to, quote, waste their time to help me and my family, would that bother me? How can that bother me? It honors me. For example, I'm chatting, on email, on internet with a friend who lives in Israel. Known each other for many years, so we're chatting. He says, Vic, I have this uncle who's in Miami, and he's a rabbi, and I'd like him to go. I've asked him, if you're okay with this, to go to the hospital and give Anna this prayer, this very antique, ancient Hebrew prayer for the healing of the sick. Remember, I'm chatting, so answer, bother me, question mark. And he says, yeah, you're Catholic, I'm Jewish, and I'm like, and my answer is, you're an idiot. And no, when has this ever been a problem between you and me? We've always been friends. I've never cared about, what team, quote, you play on or whatever. So, he says, well, you're in a very sensitive moment and very difficult moment, so maybe, what didn't bother you before is bothering you, might bother you today. I said, you're still an idiot. Well, bottom line is, 2 or 3 days later, I get a phone call from this rabbi, and we agree that he'll, come to. I give him the hospital, the room number, and so we agree on, let's say, Thursday, 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock, he'll be at the hospital. Okay, great. So, the guy shows up, according to the schedule, and we start talking, and he does his prayer in Hebrew, which I understood absolutely nothing. Maybe I understood when he said Yehovah and when he said Amen. Other than that, I have no idea what he said. But we're talking, so I asked him, hey, when was the last time you saw my friend? He says, no, I've never met him in my life. But aren't you related? Aren't you family? Oh yeah, but we're very, very far removed. I mean, we're not second or third removed. He said literally, we're like 27th removed. I'm like, wow. He said, besides that, I don't speak any Spanish. And from what I saw in his emails, his English isn't exactly good. Well, how did you guys get in touch? He says he started fishing around for, friends and family. If anybody was in Miami, or sorry, he didn't say in Miami, near the Miami area, could go help this family, these people that he cares for so much, which obviously are you guys. I said, oh wow, that's incredible. I mean, and I was just, at this point, I was so grateful for this guy that I didn't even know who he was doing this, and giving us this energy, this kindness of his heart, really, and this spiritual support. Call it whatever you want. Basically, as far as I'm concerned, they're all very similar. Basically, different ways of saying the same thing. So I sort of changed the flow of the conversation and asked him, hey, what part of Miami do you live in? Well, I don't live in Miami. And but my friend said you're from here in Miami or something. Well, I live north of Boca. How far north of Boca? About an hour and a half. Basically, what this person did, this rabbi, I had no idea who he was, drove about 3.5 hours from his home to the hospital, prayed for my wife for 5 minutes, spent another 10 minutes, 15 with me, and went back home. And I was just, I couldn't believe it that somebody would give so much of their time for an anonymous, unknown family, or I had to sign a waiver allowing Dr. Kawin to apply 4 types of cancer therapies simultaneously. The waiver was because normally, according to protocols, you do this in stages. You do one type of cancer treatment, you let the person recover, and then you go on with the next stage. we didn't have that option. Anna had so many open fronts that if we attacked one problem, the other problems would eat her alive, basically. So Anna received simultaneously 3 types of chemotherapy and radiation to the brain. In other words, she would have days where she would be getting radiation to the brain at 7 o'clock in the morning, intrathecal chemotherapy, which goes straight into your spinal fluid through a valve that was placed in her skull. She would get that at 10 in the morning, and in the afternoon she would get 2 types of chemotherapy through her bloodstream. And normally just one of these therapies makes a person very weak, and she took all 4. So in this whole process, at one point I realized that Anna obviously was in very bad shape. The outcome was totally uncertain, and but I tried to, I always kept a positive view on her chances, and but regardless of the outcome, I made a few promises to myself. Very few, actually. The main one, I would say, is that since our children were 3, at the time were 3, 7, and 9, and we didn't really know if Anna was going to pull through, I knew that if, regretfully, she didn't pull through, at one point in their lives, in the process of maturing, each one of them one day would sit down with me and one-on-one, so to say, and basically ask me, Dad, did you really do everything you could at the time? And one of my biggest promises to myself was that no matter what happened, I would never ever be embarrassed of that question in my life. And then you get into the details. There's so many symbolic things happened. We had a beautiful German Shepherd, and his name was Attila. Big dog, about 90 some pounds thin. So very big. German Shepherds by definition are big. This was a big German Shepherd, and I gave Anna Attila as a puppy when more than 10 years ago, almost about 13 years ago actually, when my father was fighting his second round of cancer. And we were living in Argentina at the time, and my dad was in Illinois. So I gave Anna this 45-day-old puppy and leave for a month and a half to take care of my dad. And so Attila was Anna's dog. Everything about, I would walk him, I would feed him, I would do everything. But Anna was Anna. And so what happened, in Argentina, the people say on ranches and stuff, the gauchos will say that if a dog gets sick and passes away while his owner, his master, is sick, it's the ultimate act of love, because with his passing, he drags the sickness away, or she. And so what happened was, Anna went to the hospital on November 29th. The ambulance picked her up at about 2:30 in the afternoon. And exactly a month later, a dog that was, he was about 13 years old, but he was perfectly healthy. I was still taking him out to jog about 3 to 5 miles every day. So on December 29th, exactly a month later, he passed away at 2:30 in the afternoon, the same time the ambulance came to pick up Anna. Every person that prayed for us, that cheered for us, that sent us a get well card, an email message, gave us a phone call, a text message, dropped by the hospital to say hello, showed up with a cream bagel, whatever it was. Each one of those, from the get-go, I said, each one of those is another foot soldier in the infantry that we need to defeat this monster. And that's what it ended up being. The power of universe of us doing things connected is incredible. One day, a Thursday, I won't forget it ever in my life, she just woke up. I mean, her normal pattern at that point was she would basically fall asleep at about 9:30 at night and sleep basically till 9 in the morning. She'd wake up maybe once or twice in the middle of the night, or have to do a diaper change and that kind of stuff. But basically she'd sleep for those 12 hours. And then during the day, she'd maybe nap off a little bit, half an hour here or 40 minutes there. But she was basically awake from 9 to 9:30ish. And towards noon, she would have a certain period where she was a little bit more alert or more aware. I mean, I couldn't say she was okay, but you would actually be able to sort of have a conversation with her. But that was at noon, and it usually lasted about an hour. So that, like I said, that day she wakes up and we're talking. We're actually having a conversation, and I was thrilled. I mean, I just couldn't contain myself. I wanted it. But on the other hand, I was terrified. I was so terrified because even though in this whole ordeal, I tried to keep positive. When one of the things that was dearest to me, that I had been missing so much, was basically given back to me, I was terrified that it would be for only a little while. In other words, that if she went to sleep that night, she would wake up and revert to how she was prior to this awakening. So that day, at night, about 9 o'clock, 9:30ish, she was getting sleepy and wanted to obviously go to sleep. And I wouldn't let her sleep. I just kept talking to her and making her listen to music, and I kept her awake till like 1:30 in the morning, and she just collapsed. I mean, she was lying in bed and she just collapsed, and I couldn't wake her back up. And I was like, yeah, I don't know. And I went upstairs to our bedroom, crying. I mean, not crying, a tear or two. I was, bawling my eyes out, and I didn't sleep at all, or maybe if I did, it was about half an hour or something like that. And following day, about 9 o'clock in the morning, she woke up, and she was okay. And she was like, one of the first things she said was, "Damn, you kept me up late last night." And I'm like, oh God. And I realized she was okay. And a friend of ours, who's American, doesn't speak any Spanish whatsoever, knocked on the door, just dropped by to say hello. So I get Anna out of bed, we start a normal routine, I put her in a wheelchair. At this point she's very weak, she's weighing about 78 pounds, she couldn't even sit up straight in her own wheelchair. They put pillows on the sides to sort of prop her up. So I bring her, but she had to spend at least a few hours a day in the wheelchair to keep her vertical, to help her lungs function properly. So I sit her in the wheelchair, the doorbell rings, I open the door, and it's this friend of ours. She's American and doesn't speak any Spanish whatsoever. And I'm like, you're not going to be able to believe this when you see Anna. "What's the matter?" she said. "What's wrong?" I said, "No, nothing's wrong. On the contrary." So, and we're at the front door, and Anna's in the family room, right here, literally a few feet from where I'm at right now. And so she walks in and starts talking in English with her friend. A few minutes later, two friends of ours from Argentina show up. They don't speak hardly any English, and so they walk in, and I tell them, "You're not going to believe this. Anna is awake." Yeah, she's awake. It's daytime. No, she's mentally awake. She came back. "What do you mean?" "Go see for yourself." So they walk in, and there is Anna speaking in English with this one friend, and all of a sudden she has to speak in Spanish with her other two friends. And on top of that, she's translating, from one to the other. A few minutes later, another friend, a Colombian woman, comes in. So there she is, sitting there, very weak. She could barely keep straight, but you could see it in her eyes. She was there. and she was alive, and she was talking, and she was translating, and I'm like, we're all sort of looking at each other, sort of like when she was looking away a little bit, the other person would sort of look at me, sort of like, people, all of us were with, either crying or like tears just swelling up in your eyes, and all of a sudden the phone rings, and it's Anna's sister from Italy. She couldn't even hold the phone because of the problems in her hands and stuff. So I was holding the phone for her, and Anna's speaking in Italian with her sister, and she's like, "Yeah, I'm here with Marcela and Jorgelina," and this whole thing is just going on, and I'm speechless. I just couldn't believe it that she was talking her three languages perfectly and separating one from the other and understanding, and I said, right then, as I said, basically, oh, fuck it, she's back. And I just let all that pent-up anguish just release itself. And then, so that night, we sat down there on that couch over there, all five of us, as a family, and we watched a movie. And it was one of the most thrilling moments of my life. I mean, all this universal energy, all the power of prayer, the power of positive thinking, has all been incredible. You can't have positive thinking if you're not able to smile and laugh, and it's incredible how some of the darkest moments, when I say in the hospital and stuff like that, there was always a joke in the air someplace. But people would tell me I had no sense of reality. It was because, Vic, you have optimism about this, and you maintain a sense of humor, and it's like, oh, isn't that terrible? I mean, how horrible is that? I mean, come on, I mean, there is no way you can pull through situations like this if you're not able to find a positive, if you're not able to find a smile. Till the day before she woke up, my mother was here for about a month. Her mother-in-law was here for a month. And oh, miraculously, after the mother-in-law left, she woke up. So obviously, that's been quite a few jokes have been, made around that. And in fact, when my mom came back a few months later to see how things were going, everybody was telling her, now, listen, if all of a sudden when your mother-in-law shows up again, you go into this mental blur again, nobody's going to believe you, so don't pull it off twice. I mean, you did it once, don't do it again. By June, she was finally strong enough to start standing, and by August, she was declared officially in remission. By November, she was going up and down the stairs. It's all been all good. A few bumps here and there, but it's incredible.